Welcome to MycoWorks Talks. I'm your host, Xavier Gallego, VP of Brand and Marketing, and I'm delighted to take you with me on our journey to grow the future of materials. Thank you for tuning in. In this episode, we are going to talk with Rachel Linzer, a principal scientist here at MycoWorks. We are going to learn about mycelia and the fungi kingdom. Also, we are going to travel in time and discover those key moments that define her career. Hi, I am here with Rachel Linzer, a principal scientist here at MycoWorks. Really excited to talk to you, Rachel.
Excited to talk to you too.
This is not your normal environment. You'd rather be in the lab than being here, huh?
This is, I don't have a lab coat. I don't have a pipette. What do I do? But I'll do my best.
And I'm really excited to talk to you because every time that I have that opportunity, I learn something. And even before recording, I was already learning. So I will try to bring that knowledge back to the podcast. But the first question I normally ask in this podcast it's a very simple question, is when was the first time you heard the word mycelium?
That's a great question. That's actually one of my favorite questions. I do remember the first time I heard the word mycelium. I was actually a biology major as an undergraduate and even got the opportunity to go study rainforest ecology in Australia. And I never heard the word mycelium as a biology major. And I got really interested in host pathogen interactions. And I went to grad school to study host pathogen interactions in forests. And on my very first day of class in grad school 20 years ago, I started learning about fungi, and that was the first time that I heard the word mycelium. And when I heard that word, and the very first lesson that you learn is a lot of the biological rules you think you know are now out the window, and they're doing something new, and they're doing something interesting, and there's so much potential there. And it was stuff that I'd never heard about before. And that day I fell in love, and I wanted I knew I wanted to study fungi.
Wow.
From there on.
So we're talking about the 2000s.
2002.
20
years ago.
In Australia.
No, not in Australia.
That was not in Australia.
That was as a graduate student.
Gotcha. It's really, it amazed me because in the last podcast, we were talking with Matt Schooling that you know, and he was like, yeah, I'm a PhD in material science, and I never heard the word mycelium until I met Phil Ross. I'm like, how is that possible? Why folks don't know about it? And why you don't study that more often if you are a PhD in material science?
I think it's a really, really good question. I was actually getting my PhD in mycology, so we're going to talk about the mycology being the study of fungi. And so mycology and forest pathology, you're going to talk about mycelium. But again, as a biologist, I don't think I'd heard that word, definitely not centered in my previous studies. So at that time, it was not common to hear the word mycelium anywhere. And when I told people what I did, I had to choose words that people would be more familiar with or qualify, or what mycelium was, what fungus was. Was it just a mushroom? Is it just a mushroom? What else is going on with this whole thing? What are you doing with your life? And now over the last 20 years, I've just watched this explosion of interest, and the ideas about fungi and mycelium are going into more fields. So now here at MycoWorks, we talk to job candidates, we talk to folks in material science now who have definitely heard the word mycelium. Crazy. Which is really exciting.
How does it make you feel?
I feel so excited. And when I talk to my old professors, they're noticing the same thing. Their classes were maybe not the most popular or populated classes perhaps in the past, or there was a solid number of students there. But now the level of interest in people who would like to learn more about this, about fungi, about fungal materials, about the role of fungus in the ecosystem, about what else is there besides the mushroom on your pizza, is getting True. Really. There's so many more people who are interested now.
Good ingredient choice, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. So you were saying before that you had to adjust your vocabulary when you were talking about it, maybe 20 years ago, right? When you learn from it and you start talking to your friends and family. How? What was the word that you choose to talk about it?
Well, as someone who is also learning about it, I think the analogy that really helped me is a lot of people's only experience with a fungus is what you can see is what we call the fruit body. So a mushroom or other things that act as a reproductive structure like a mushroom. And so when we think about that, we can kind of compare a whole fungus to an apple tree. The reproductive structure in an apple tree is an apple. It's got the seeds in it. That's how you make the new trees. The reproductive structure on some fungi not all, but some, is a mushroom, and it has spores in it. That's how we make a new fungal or can spread a new fungal organism. But there's the whole tree that's also there. So the mycelial network is like the whole tree that's there supporting that fruit body. You can have one fruit body, you can have many fruit bodies, but similar to an apple on an apple tree, there's a whole other organism there doing a lot of other things besides growing an apple. So that analogy really made a lot of sense to me and helped me. And so I sometimes use that with other people as well.
Yeah, well, it's a good analogy. I understand it now. I mean, I've been at MycoWorks for almost 4 years, and I think I get it. And I've been teaching my daughter what mycelium is.
Oh, yay.
And she is yelling mycelium. She's 3 years old, and she yells mycelium. It's super cool.
Definitely a first word that you need.
Yeah, so here we go. She's learning it like,
yeah.
Remember, like, oh, my dad told me mycelium when I was 3 years old. That will be her answer. It's really good to know a little bit more about mycelium. And what resonated to me, what you were mentioning, is that when you were studying the fungi realm, or I don't know if it's called that way anymore, but when you were studying it, they told you all the rules that you know, forget about it.
Yeah, they didn't say it in so many words, but I like edge cases, and I like continua, and I like things that aren't black and white. And some of the rules obviously still apply. Not all of biology had gone out the window, but a lot of things that I'd learned about, I had to readjust because fungi were capable of so many more things than just plants, animals, bacteria, other things that I was more familiar with.
Gotcha. So to give a little bit of context to the folks that are listening, are we into a new era? Meaning, are we into a historical moment where we're learning something that we never knew that could change the way that we do things?
I think that's a very accurate way to put what's happening right now. So it's really hard to learn about something if you can't see it, or if you can't observe it, or if you're not looking for it. So a lot of times in the past with fungus, what we had was what we could see. And sometimes mycology is a field with a long history. There have been people studying fungi, even in academic institutions, for a long time. But of course, people understanding fungi in their lives, in their use, how they use them. There's a lot of knowledge about fungus. But what I think part of what has changed is recently we have some molecular tools to really understand what certain fungi are, where they are, what they're doing there, how important they are, how they interact with the rest of ecosystems, what the different roles they can play there is. And without molecular tools have just brought a whole new dimension to us understanding where these organisms are and what they're doing. So I think we are in a new era, and we're also in a new era of taking that knowledge, applying it, and doing things like making mycomaterials in a new way. That there's a lot of really fascinating innovation that's happening that is building on this new knowledge that we're having.
So would you say that that we didn't discover these before because we didn't have the tools, or because we didn't look at it?
I think people have known about fungus for a long time. People have grown fungus on a grand scale for food or for medicine. People have even used fungi as cellular factories for about a century. And people have made mycomaterials in the past, where mycomaterials, which is making materials for human use out of fungus when you're not just eating it, that's actually got a long and interesting history as well. But I think what's new and different now is bringing it all together with some of our new knowledge and our new ways of knowing and our new ways that we can understand and manipulate fungi, and even just thinking about them as the raw material for making new things in a new way. I think that is really exploding right now. It's a really exciting, a very exciting time for someone who has studied mycology to be in a field looking at biomaterials.
That's well, I mean, it always blows my mind. Every time that I'm talking with you, I just get excited about mycelium. So I appreciate having you here today. So Rachel, why is mycelium so appealing as a material?
I think biologically it's really interesting as material because it is a network. It's growing as a network of interconnected cells that are they're called hyphae. They're shaped like threads. They can branch, they can fuse. The network is not static. It doesn't grow one part of it and then stay fixed. So it doesn't stay the same. It's a dynamic network. It's adaptive. It can adapt to its environment. It can communicate. There's signals that can be communicated within the network. I think it was Merlin Sheldrake in his book Entangled Life. He called mycelium a body without a body plan. So again, kind of thinking about wood or other biomaterials, you grow a tree. There's some variation within the tree, but you're going to be basically tree-shaped and grow wood that has these certain properties. But because mycelium is a body without a body plane, you can get this network and you can get the cells fusing and you can get them in different lengths and they can branch in different ways and they can have different things expressed in their cell wall and you can give them a different environment. They can behave differently. So the plasticity and potential in a mycelial network is really intriguing as a biomaterial.
Wow. Yeah, and it looks like that it's knitting, right? Like a little bit of, it gets the communication part is because it's the hyphae are connecting to each other and creating a massive net.
They can connect to each other sometimes. They can branch off. They can focus the whole organism in a different direction. There's seeking behavior. They can look for nutrients. They can change their shape. There are different forms of hyphae.
Wow. And what are we doing with the organism here at MycoWorks? What is the fine mycelium? What's the difference between what grows on the ground and communicates and tries to find food or tries to survive, which at the end of the day is like a very animal instinct, right? Let's survive. What are we doing here?
That's a really interesting question. We give our fungus, our mycelial network, a big chunk of food.
Here we go.
Yeah, a big block, literally a big block of food, and it can grow throughout its food. And then when it has grown throughout its food, this kind of seeking behavior can lead it to come out of its food up into the air. And when we have our mechanical manipulations of these cells, part of the network, these hyphae, these thread-like cells that come up out of their food and up into the air, manipulating those is how we get our fine mycelium.
Wow. So basically what we're doing is we cook them dinner, right? They're eating, they're having a blast. We get them in that moment where they're so satisfied. And then when they get out of the table is where we convince them to do something else.
Or they finish dinner and they're still hungry.
Oh.
And they're looking for the next dinner.
Here we go. And that's where we provide the extra dinner that's going to be a material that's going to be used in fashion. That's crazy. So everything looks like we are domesticating a really wild part of nature, right? Something that it was really difficult to even think about. Nobody knew before until Phil and some of our pioneers were playing with mycelia. That sounds to me that is the way to go. That sounds to me that is it has more impact, right? In terms of how we do things, and if you compare it to other innovations in the past, like plastic or things like that are more harmful for the world. And this comes from the ground. It is abundant, I imagine. And we are harnessing it or playing with it to do what we want it to do. How good is that for the environment?
Yeah, one of the reasons why I really wanted to go in this direction in my own career is because I have really care very deeply about sustainability and using my biological knowledge and training to contribute to sustainability in some way. I felt like I was able to do that in my forest pathology training by trying to understand invasive species that were harming ecosystems that were more natural, more native. And here I really feel like there's a lot of potential. Yes, like you said, this is something it's alive, it's biodegradable, it can grow itself using agricultural wastes or other things as the feeder material. And there are a lot of ideas that are very interesting about what people call a circular bioeconomy. So you can use biological wastes, like agricultural wastes or wastes from the lumber industry, sawdust, things like this. You can grow fungus on it. It can become a material that you use. And ideally, that material can then be composted, biodegraded, and go back in, completing the circle. So wow. I think there's a lot of potential here.
You're probably having a blast discovering it now.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about what mycelium is. We talk about what makes it unique, why we didn't know that much about it in the past. You're a pioneer here at MycoWorks with the other scientists that we have. How much do we know and how much we don't know?
It's hard to know what you don't know, but I think that if I had to guess, I'd estimate we know very little about what we could know and what we will know in the future.
Wow. So, and just with what we know, we are able to deliver a soft material that looks like leather and performs like leather.
That's one of the most exciting things about working at MycoWorks is we've gotten so far knowing what we know and building on the work of the artists who co-founded the company and coming from art practice, we've gotten really far with making this material that has properties that are amazing and really, really hard to achieve in other ways. But as a scientist, when I think about where we could go from here, that's what the most exciting and also a little bit scary part of my role here is. There's a whole vista out there of things that we could know. It's hard. There's so much achievement that we could make and so many different ways that we could explore and change and tune and adapt what we're doing that it's exciting.
I know, but it's overwhelming as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Because when you could know so much, when everything is about, it's up there to discover, like it can be overwhelming. I think it's. Do you feel that way with all the team here that is doing research? Like, are you overwhelmed from everything that needs to be known, or?
I think it's more extremely exciting.
That's a better way to put it.
One way that we think about it on the science team, I think, is almost any experiment we do, we learn something new that we didn't know before. So how to pick and choose which experiments to do and which sorts of things we want to learn that can help us innovate faster, that can help support the folks who are making our material. There's an amazing opportunity for learning, which is one of the most fun things about science, that moment where you look at the results of your experiment and you know something that you didn't know before. There's at least evidence to suggest something's happening that you didn't know about before. So that happens a lot here, which is
there
great.
Any findings that you can share? What is the last thing that you learned that you didn't know? And if it's shareable, of course, because I know that we have some confidentiality going on here.
Yeah, I feel really fortunate. I've been here for a couple of years now, and I've gotten to participate in a lot of different projects. One of the things that I and my team are focusing on right now is strain development work. So looking at different fungal strains and seeing how they perform in our material, what properties they have, what new things we can learn. So every strain screening, every strain test that we do is something new and exciting that we learn.
Wow. And I imagine that I don't understand the scientific process a lot, but I know that you write white papers, that you have to do patents, and when you discover something, like you have to make sure that other people can look at it and use it as well. Are we doing that? Like, is this something that MycoWorks is doing right now?
This is definitely something that MycoWorks is doing. Yeah, the scientific process is one of the things that drew me to science. When I was a child, I thought I didn't like science. I thought science was this whole chunk of facts that you had to memorize. So when you went to science class, you learned 20 things and then you had a test on them and you said those 20 things back to your teacher, and that was science. And I think around 7th grade, when I was about 11 or 12, I had a teacher who let me know for the first time that science is not a load of facts that everyone knows and your job is to memorize them. Science is a process for discovering new things about the world. So part of that is, yes, to make sure that you're able to communicate those new things that you discover in the most effective ways.
Nice. Well, I would love to meet that girl that was learning about science and tell her, like, hey, guess what? In X years from now, you're going to be a scientist at MycoWorks and you were going to learn Mycelium, Can you imagine, like, talking to yourself when you're just learning that scientific process?
That was the beginning of it. I think otherwise I would have been an English major.
Yeah, yes.
Wow. So thank you, Mr. Carr from Meadowbrook.
So, Rachel, right now you have a team with you and you are a mentor. And I was wondering if you had any mentor to help you define who you are. Do you have a moment or a person that you can recall?
Yeah, I think that my experience is really shaped by, and I feel very fortunate to have had this experience by my very first job outside of my undergraduate education. I had a job in a lab at University of California, San Francisco, studying bacteria and bacterial pathogenesis, so bacterially caused diseases. And this lab was led by a really inspirational and amazing woman. And she herself had been educated during a time when I think there were more barriers to women achieving certain scientific achievements. So she had made it a goal of her lab when she was making the decisions and choosing who to mentor. She had made it a goal of her lab to really make it a welcoming lab for women. It actually at the time was an all women lab. And she was a fantastic mentor and helped us all learn a lot about how to navigate the professional world of science. And also being a brilliant scientist, she also taught us the scientific end. So I had that that was my first experience in a professional lab full time. So that has been able to color everything that I've done since then. That was the baseline that I was able to experience. I feel incredibly fortunate to have had this mentor in my life. And then I was able to go from there. And now that I have folks on my own team, I also feel very fortunate. We've got right now an all-women mycology and genomics team. And anything that I can do to help make science as a pursuit to contribute to this ongoing journey, we need to make sure that it's welcoming to women, but also everyone else who may have been historically marginalized within science. That's a really passionate goal of mine, and I would like to do anything I can to help make that a reality in whatever context I can do that in.
Wow. It's really exciting to share work and space with you, to be honest, because this is one of the beautiful things about MycoWorks, right? Like, I come from such a different background, not only like ethnicity and studies and professionally, like with different backgrounds, we coexisting in the same place. You come from science, I'm a designer, and here we are talking about fungi.
This is also one of my very favorite things about MycoWorks. Having been in a couple of other biotech contexts in the past, I've mostly worked around for together with scientists, and I love being here. I love that that this was an endeavor born of art practice. And another middle school story was I would go to I know middle school stories. Not this is maybe only slightly embarrassing, but I would go to the middle school library every week and check out this giant folio-sized book on the history of fashion because I was fascinated by it. I didn't really express it in my outward appearance, but I was fascinated by it as a discipline or pursuit. So I checked this book out every week, and I just have had a longstanding interest in fashion history. Never thought that there would be a place to combine those interests with mycology, sustainability, material development, all the things that we're doing here. So that's just an extra cherry on the wow. MycoWorks Sunday.
Here we go.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had a chance to see the Victoria bag from Hermes, but when you see the objects that we're working with other partners or like the bag itself, what do you think?
I did get a chance to see it. I got a chance to hold one. I was very excited. That will probably perhaps be my last chance to hold one, but no, just it was really great to see that. And again, my background even in mycology is more tree diseases. Root and butt rot, sudden oak death, things like this. And so to be able to take that knowledge and use it to help create a beautiful object and a functional object and a high-performing object is really an unexpected journey, but a very exciting one.
Yeah, something that really resonated to me when I was talking with other folks from the team in the science department is that you mainly, or some of them were trained to kill it.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Some of them, they're just like their whole professional life was to try to kill it. And now we're just growing it. Isn't it romantic?
Yes, it's wonderful. My professional life was more to study the trouble it was causing or to appreciate it for the contributions it could make to an ecosystem by killing things. And that this is a very different mindset. And I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's from both sides, from the science side and the artistic or design side. The challenge is to overcome the stigma of fungi being something bad.
Yes. Phil Ross, who is one of our co-founders and has worked a lot with fungi in his art practice, has said something that really resonated with me. He would try to build objects that encouraged people to interact with fungus. He would create objects that were made with fungus that helped people get over that, fungus, rotten, disgusting, repulsive, knee-jerk reaction, and to invite them into what was possible. And that has really resonated with me.
Yeah, I mean, I see art being as a provocation, as a way to think differently. And Phil was doing a great job at like, hey, fungi can be gorgeous and can be good and can be beautiful. So, yeah, but it's so interesting, like how much are we changing the perspective of the organism? And before we were recording, you were telling me that since you study it, everything has changed. So what is different now? I know that probably you don't know exactly how it is, but we learn it in a way, or you're learning in a way that right now is not relevant.
Yeah, or it's relevant from a historical perspective, but we've been able to expand our understanding. I guess this goes back to the idea of science is not a static set of facts that exists in the world, that it's our job to memorize, But yes, when I was learning about fungi, it was, there are 5 kingdoms and fungus is one of the 5 kingdoms. And with a lot of...
By the way, not a lot of people knows that.
Oh.
I found like at the
Okay.
beginning of launching Reishi 2 years ago, I remember like discussing with people on social that fungi is a kingdom, but they didn't know. Like it's something that we have to do a better job at in school.
No, that's a really good point. You were talking about your daughter. This is my kids, where we talk about this a lot. But I guess before the idea of the 5 kingdoms, we kind of organized life into plants and animals. If
Correct.
it's alive, it's a plant or it's an animal. And we have been adapting and modifying that as a Western scientific community for quite a long time. And kingdom was one way where we brought in, microbes and other things that weren't captured by the plant animal dichotomy. And of course, fungi sometimes still get called or considered plants, but biologically, when you look at how they evolved, they're actually more closely related to animals. So you're more closely related to the mushroom on your pizza than the mushroom is to the tomato sauce on your pizza, if we want to go with pizza again. And yeah, so with molecular tools, and really in the last few decades, being able to dive in and really understand a lot more about how things evolved and how things are related to each other from their shared ancestry, we've just been able to really add a lot of refinement and a lot of nuance and a lot of complexity that's actually there to how we understand fungi as a group.
Talking about the future a little bit, there's like a lot of talks and quotes from scientists that actually are really close to us, speculating about space and colonization of space and mycelium or fine mycelium platform or something like it being pivotal or key to be able to do that kind of stuff. I want us to have a little bit of sci-fi moment, right? Okay. I want us to imagine 2080 or the future where we traveling in space is something that, we figure out what is the role of something like mycelia? What is the role of fungi in all of that?
Another really fascinating question. My previous consideration of fungi had been very earthbound. I thought of them as part of, complex, globally distributed ecosystems. But this idea that if humans go into space, if they live in space for a long time, they're going to need a lot of objects. And one way we could get the objects is by growing them.
Here we go.
Using fungal mycelium. That's a really fascinating train of innovation and thought there. I think it seems you're not going to be able to go cut down a lot of trees and bring a spaceship full of wood to Mars, but maybe you could bring some spores or some vials of starter cultures of fungal mycelium, and with certain kinds of nutrients and food to grow them on, you could then grow some of the materials you need to live in space.
Wow. It will be bananas.
Yes. I'm super excited other people are thinking about that. It is a sci-fi moment for me.
Yeah. I love imagining it. Like, I'm a visual person, right? So I'm already seeing those like little houses in the middle of like this red planet, and they have an attached, some of like a small fine mycelium plant, but attaching to the house. And you have the bathroom is like where you get some of like the prime ingredients to grow things, and then in that mind, it goes, I accelerate. I get so excited thinking about it. And I imagine you too. Like, it's impossible that you are not excited about that kind of stuff.
It's very exciting. So maybe you're growing your fine mycelium to wear. Maybe your house is made out of building materials that are held together by a mycelial network, so they're hard and durable. I mean, the sky in this case is not the limit.
Yeah, so, here we go. What a beautiful quote. I like that. I have to ask you, by the way, what sustainability means to you?
Sustainability to me means trying to do everything we can to minimize the impact that humans are having on the broader, fully functional world without us in it.
The reason why I'm asking this question is because the little I know and the more I learn, right? Sustainability means less, right? To me, sustainability is like, if I'm doing something, I'm not sustainable. And the reason why I'm asking is because I know that you have a definition that is not the shared definition of the word. Because, companies say like, sustainability, we are very sustainable. What does that mean?
It does absolutely get used as a buzzword. One more school story, if that's okay. Early in college in one of my early biology classes.
Where are we now? Where are we traveling?
We're traveling to, the year was 1994. No, sorry. The year was 1995. And we're in Los Angeles. I'm an undergraduate studying biology, and I had a professor who just broke it down how many resources some nations that are more prone to consumption for a variety of socio and economic factors use compared to other nations. And of course, the nation I was sitting in, the United States, used a huge amount of resources and was spewing a vast amount of things back out into the planet that were feeding back and contributing to things like climate change. And so I thought that I would like to, again, combine my interest in biology with something that could contribute to reducing the negative impact that people are having on the complex network of living organisms around them, making the planet inhospitable for themselves and other things potentially. So when I think about sustainability, I just try to think about making a positive impact, not leaving giant piles of things that can't biodegrade behind us, using, not emitting so many greenhouse gases, just doing anything I can to contribute to something like that, respecting the ecosystems and the amazing creatures in all the domains, microbial, plant, animal, fungi, everything that have evolved in this world, and trying to respect them and leave them for the next generations to have.
So if I'm hearing you correct, and I'm simplifying here, Rachel, sustainability is positive impact.
Yes.
And the word impact is really powerful. I think like acknowledging, because I'm a marketer, and it's really important to communicate the right word. And impact says you're going to do something. It's going to happen, right? Sustainable says, yeah, you can do something, and maybe it will not affect the future, but it affects. Impact, you're going to do damage.
That's right.
Make sure that it's positive, or that it has some sort of circularity, which is a nice word that we're using right now. Also sounds like a really buzzword, but I like the word impact a lot. So I think that we are getting to the last part of the podcast, and I love asking kind of like advice for yourself, or for someone like you. In this case, I'll say, if you could talk to Rachel in high school, you could give her advice in the career that you had. How does it sound?
Okay, that's
deep.
Yes. So we've got the time machine. We're staying on the sci-fi moment.
Yes, sci-fi time machine. You have 5 minutes to go back in time. High school. You're in the high school cafeteria, and you're hanging out, maybe reading a book, but potentially you're reading a book.
Probably reading a book.
Reading a book. And you just show up. Boom.
Yeah, I think that at that time, I was trying to decide whether I wanted to do biology or literature. And I would say, yes, go with the science. That's a great path. And I would have told my high school self to be really skeptical of what scientific knowledge I've received, in the way that, again, science isn't settled. So just because you know something, or just because our best evidence supports one particular interpretation, generate that skepticism, figure out, be open to paradigm shifts. Everything you think you know could shift based on better and stronger evidence, and be really, really fierce about seeking those things out, and go with the microbes and stick with the interesting systems.
Some part of that message, I think that for a high schooler might be too deep, by the way.
Okay.
It was like, cool, like, yeah. What are you talking about?
I was kind of a nerd.
So probably will understand, but that's good. So go with biology. Study more biology. Actually, Matt couldn't say that too. I wish I studied more biology. So I think that's a good advice for the folks that are thinking about, like, what do I have to do? Like, biology is the future, isn't it?
There's a lot that biology can contribute. And again, as we've talked about here, there are so many new tools that are really opening up new worlds with biology that weren't even possible when I started my training.
Wow.
A long time ago. So,
well, again, what a pleasure to have you. I hope that I can have you again soon, when we discover something amazing and we change the definition of the new realm, or like whatever fungi is going to be in the future. So I hope that we are part of it, and I hope you stay with us for a long time. And that's about it. Like, thank you so much, and talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for the conversation today. I always love getting a chance to talk to you.
Amazing. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed as much as I did hosting it. We are thrilled to have you with us in our journey. So if you want to learn more, please follow our Instagram page at MycoWorks for our latest news and more. This episode is being produced by Maddie Nathans, sound editing by Carney Ballardo, content editing by Chantal Otto.